Thank you for joining us for Lean Bites. My name is Jason Buck. I'm the Business Development Director here at Lean Techniques. If this is your first time here, as a reminder, Lean Bites are just a short 16-minute talk where we work to provide you with simple, practical tips and techniques that you can start applying in your organization today. So a couple of housekeeping items. One, if you have any questions, please feel free to just drop them in the chat and we'll address them at the end. If time allows, or we can offer more insight in an email follow-up. And two, there's going to be a survey that automatically pops up at the end. Please do us a huge favor and fill that out. It's a quick, like 2-second survey, just to give us some information and make these even better as we go forward. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to introduce our Chief Innovation Officer, Tim Gifford. He's going to introduce you to a decision-making framework to help you start leveraging for real impact on your messy data. So Tim, over to you.
Oh, thanks, Jason. So thanks for joining everybody today. Like Buck mentioned, this will be fairly quick, but what we're going to talk about is this the statement I hear a lot from data teams about how their data is a mess and they're not really sure where to get started. For this agenda, we got kind of I want to take a new approach to the way that we think about a mess. I'm going to introduce this decision, 5 key dimensions to do kind of a maturity assessment for you. And then based on that maturity level, like what are some of the next steps that you could take within your organization? So when I talk to teams, they all say that their data is a mess. And I want to offer this different way to think about a mess because I think there's judgment that's naturally applied with any mess that exists. I think messes are an opportunity. I think they are a target-rich environment. They are a great starting point. And I think it's much easier to change a mess than if you have something that's well structured. So if you have a mess, this is a great opportunity to help get it started to be cleaned up. In my experience, when there's a mess and you start cleaning up, nobody asks you, why are you doing that? They just help and support you get that, get it started to be cleaned up. I also think that they tend to be fairly fractal in nature. So I know that when we think there's a mess, we need to think of a global solution that's going to fix everything, but you really can start very small. You can start by, if you think about your house, you can clean your room, then clean your house, then clean your neighborhood, then improve your city and improve your state and improve your country. So you don't have to necessarily get bogged down with this grand vision. You can do a lot locally and in the small in order to improve the messes that currently exist. The other thing I like about this when you do have messes is it tends to create like emergent behaviors and patterns. And I'm just concerned because people like when there's all this collaboration that happens when there's a mess, people join in to help. And there's just a lot of uh, natural organization that happens where people want to make it better. And it reminds me of like this, I think there's I don't know, a fable about like, I think it was a pottery class, but then it was retold by James Clear in Atomic Habits, where he talked about photography. And one of the things that they mentioned in that fable is he took basically a class, a pottery class, and they took half the class and they said, this half the class, you're going to get graded on the quantity of pottery that you create. At the end of the semester, we're going to weigh it, and whoever has the most gets the A's, and then it goes down from there. The other half of the class, we're only going to measure you on the one best piece that you create. And guess what happened? The people who did the iteration were messy, tried a bunch of different ways, uh, and failed a lot, actually came out with better outcomes than the team that tried to do the side of the class that tried to do it the one best way possible because they didn't practice, they got hung up on doing it the best way. And so really what I'm trying to inspire here is if you have a mess, it's a great time to just get started, discover those emergent behaviors and patterns in order to help improve the data within your organization. Now, when I hear about a mess, I hear about a bunch of different things in data that are messy, inconsistent formats, missing data, duplicate data. But really what we're going to focus on today is having your data scattered and siloed across your organization. Most companies want to try to get that wrangled and put into a place where they can get more value out of it by linking all the different pieces together. So I'm not going to spend any time really on these other ones. Hopefully you've got some ideas on how to manage those within your transactional systems. Now, why do we want all this data integrated? And ultimately, I think it's because our organizations are seeking wisdom. I have this, I heard this quote recently. I can't remember who said it. Like, knowledge is knowing that your tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing not to put it in your fruit salad. And I think the data that we collect helps build the foundation in order to get knowledge and wisdom. So we need that raw, unprocessed data to give us that foundation to turn it into a level of information so that we can start asking those questions about who, what, when, and where. And then if we can then analyze that, and then we can start asking the how questions to get up to that knowledge layer. And ultimately, the grand vision is to try to get it into that level of wisdom for our organization. Um, and when I do talk to teams about these data platforms, um, and how they're going to get up to wisdom. Like I always, it seems like they're focused on, like if I ask them what they're measuring, they're always measuring data velocity, you know, uh, how quickly we're getting the data in. Their foundational layer at the data, they're interested in their data volumes. They're interested in their accuracy. What I rarely hear them discuss is really about the adoption of the data products that they're creating, about getting up to that knowledge and wisdom level. And what I want to try to do is kind of inspire you maybe to get started to help like not only get started, but embrace the mess and the beauty of that emergent design and stay focused on your data consumers and working your way backwards so that you're focused on that delivery of those data products to your consumers and not so focused on cleaning up the mess completely and getting it into a state where it's pristine and perfect. Ultimately, we want those products to go to your data consumers as quickly as possible and then iterate on those so that we can learn and develop and make sure that we've got the good data and practices along the way. In order to kind of create a little bit of structure and let you know where you're at, I'm going to have you take a quiz. It's a quick quiz. There's 5 questions around the 5 key dimensions. And basically, if you get out a piece of paper, I'm going to ask these 5 questions and have you rate yourself. From those ratings, we're going to break it into 3 different stages. Ad hoc is where you're really beginning your journey. Structured is where you're starting to get your data organized. And then the AI ML ready is where you've got the structured data and you're really kind of towards that top echelon of maturity for your data platforms. The 5 dimensions, we'll just jump right in. So if you got that piece of paper, the first question is your data centralized? Do you have a data lake? Do you have a lake house? And is it accessible across teams? And if everything's in spreadsheets, give yourself 0 points. If you've got some centralized processing, if you've got cloud storage set up, go ahead and give yourself a point. And if you've got that thing fully integrated across, you're using all the coolest tools and storing all of that data in a centralized data lake, give yourself 2 points. Next one, data governance and quality. Do you have standardized metadata, quality checks, lineage tracking? Do you know where your data is coming from? Do you know that it's good? And do you have data that describes the data? So if you don't have any of that governance or you have inconsistent metadata, go ahead and say that you're in that beginning phase. If you started your data governance journey, and this could even be as simple as a spreadsheet capturing the name of the data, source data, and what those elements mean, what the columns mean, go ahead and give yourself a point. And then if you are optimized, you've got some sort of tool that you're managing all of the metadata, you're making it easier to discover the data products across your organization, and you can clearly track where your data came from as it's being used in more of those knowledge or wisdom level reporting. Number 3 is your team skills. So people are really important, and we want to make sure that we're supporting them. So where's your team at? Can they build end-to-end data pipelines and deploy ML tools? If they haven't really started, or you're relying on vendors or external support, you're in that beginning phase. If you've got some exposure, your team knows a little bit about SQL, they've got some Python experience, maybe they haven't done any machine learning or pipeline automation, you're kind of in that mid-level. And if you've got team members that are um, doing all the things, they know how to build it, they know how to scale it, they're doing more real time, give yourself 2 points. Only two more questions to go. Number four is about your AI ML capability. Are you prototyping or running production or ML models? If you haven't really done much experimentation or prototyping, that's that beginning phase. If you've done some experimentation, but you really haven't deployed anything to production, that's an in process. That's 1 point. And then if you've got ML models that are going all the way out to production, you're finding ways to leverage that across your business. Go ahead and put 2 points for that optimized level. All right. And the final question is, are you scalable and future proof? Can your infrastructure handle the 10x data volumes and real-time use cases? If you are more on-prem and you don't really have the infrastructure to support, probably at that beginning phase. If you do have some scale, you've got some batch processing, you're probably in the cloud. You may not be doing streaming or real-time, but you've got some of those processes set up. That's probably a 1 pointer. And then if you're fully optimized, you've got auto scaling architectures, you've got maybe some of these more premier tools, and you believe that you can handle, auto scaling to up to 10x times your data volumes. Give yourself that optimized level. And now what? Hopefully you've tracked all those scores. You got best case, you'd have two for each of those five, which would give you a grand total of 10. But now what? I want to split these things up into different stages and provide some example action plans that you can take based on that basic scoring. So if you scored between 0 and 3 in the ad hoc stage, so you're just getting started on this journey, and your goal for the next step is really to get some structured data management. Um, I like to think, let's get all of our data loaded into all our raw data loaded into some sort of storage. Um, and I don't care if you use it yet. I just want to get it stored in case you do need it. You do want to use it in the future. Again, for governance, how do you find the database, or how do you manage the data elements and the metadata around it? Maybe it's a spreadsheet. Set up a document that has where the data came from, who owns it, maybe what's a description of some of the more tricky fields in that data to help people understand what it is. And then start upscaling your team. Teach them SQL, Python, some cloud basics, generally with big data. I shouldn't say large data, big data. You're going to be in the cloud. So make sure that they have some understanding of how to use those tools out in the cloud. And then I'd like to say, let's work on getting your first data product out to your data consumers. Let's work on adoption of that data product, not necessarily all of the things that you need to get ready, but when can we have it ready and is anybody using it? And then talk to them to figure out what works and what doesn't work. I really want to get the value delivered as soon as quickly to them so that they see the value of the time that we're spending in building this data platform. And then do some ML proof of concepts, play around with it, learn more about the tools on each of these cloud vendors. The next stage is that structured stage. If you're between a score of 4 and 6, ultimately we're trying to get to a point where you can have more repeatable AI ML workflows. You've got to have the data first in order to build these tools. Um, get those automated pipelines set up, get the transactional systems moving into a more robust, whether it's a data lakehouse or a data warehouse, get those data flows moving. Um, this is probably where you're going to start implementing some sort of data catalog, get it out of that Excel spreadsheet, have every flow through that data catalog and make sure that we've got metadata associated with it so it's easy to discover. Um, Start building some ML pipelines using, SageMaker or ML Flow, and then look to start optimizing your costs as you start putting more data, have more processing happening in your cloud providers. And then that top level, the AI/ML ready stage, you've already got your data managed, you've got it flowing into the right places, you've got governance to make sure that the right people can discover it, but also you're protecting it so the wrong people can't see it. But now we want to make sure that we're leveraging the kind of these ML machine learning operations. We want to get all of that data deployed. We actually want to start tracking some of the experimentation that we're doing against those machine learning models so that we can uh, improve them over time based on what we learn. Look to start unifying your analytics, um, merging all these data into one tool. I generally like to have things starting to align towards a single reporting platform. I know that can be challenging for a lot of organizations. You'll also be looking at how to start streaming, getting more real-time data from all of your systems, and then start to experiment with LLMs, doing retrieval augmented generation against them, improving them with your own data sets, and helping to provide wisdom to your organization based on the LLMs enhanced with uh, your organization's data. And that was a quick lean bite. Thank you for joining me for, I don't know, 18 minutes or so. I appreciate your time joining here, and I'll turn it back over to Jason Buck.
Tim, you got it done in like 16 and a half if we calculate it right. So you're perfect there.
But
So
who's counting? Who's
yeah,
counting?
who's counting? It's fine. Yeah, if you'd like to stay on here, any questions, feel free to come off mute, put them in the chat. If you have any questions, we'll stay on for a few more minutes here and address those if anybody has any. While we're waiting for any of those to come through, just remember that there will be a survey that pops up at the end. We hope you'll take just a minute to share your feedback there, and help us for future Lean Bites. If you have any ideas for anything that you would like us to present on, that would be amazing. Quick sneak peek at the April Lean Bites. Lean Techniques Chief Growth Officer Danielle Brommer is going to be talking about empowering brilliance and sharing some of the lessons she's learned going from an individual contributor to a leader. So mark that one. That'll be on April 1st. No, we're not kidding. It's on April Fool's Day, but it will happen that day, just so you know.
And of course, if anybody has uh, more questions, I'm happy to set up a meeting and call with you, and we can discuss kind of where you're at and what you're interested in doing for next steps. Let's embrace the mess.
With that, I will say have a great rest of your day. Stay warm, stay inside, dodge the blizzard. Hopefully it won't be that bad. And we'll see you again next month and get these slides out to you very, very soon as well. Thanks all.